And we're live. Pendance does not officially begin until filmmakers are present, and filmmakers are present, and we're so happy to have five amazing filmmakers here. Um, Torin, let's just go around if everyone has the same grid as me, and if you just go introduce yourself and the film that you made.
Sure. Hi, guys. I'm Torin. I made Working From Home.
Hey guys, I'm Nash. I made Shark.
Down to Carlos.
Hello, I'm Carlos Ortrigo. I am the director of Survivors.
Hi, I'm Daniel, and I made Swan Song.
Awesome.
Hi, I'm Dominic. I made The Washing Machine.
Okay, amazing. So just to keep the audio nice and clean, we're going to ask everyone to mute themselves until they're asked a question. And if you want to unmute yourself, if you have something to say, you can just unmute yourself. Amazing. Okay, so welcome to the LMFAO short block Q&A. Again, if you haven't seen the film, this Q&A is going to be relevant for you, but definitely go check out the films. And this will be stitched to the end of that short block afterwards, so you can see it. We're so excited to have all of you. Now, I was looking for themes that unite your films, apart from the hilarious nature in which, everything unfolds. And one thing that really got me was pacing and the big payoff. Each of these films, I don't know if you've had a chance to watch each other's films, but you've all, I don't know if you co-conspired with each other 2 years ago and set up these films so they could one day come into the same block together, but it's just really brilliant. So can you talk about how conscious you are of rhythm and pacing in the script stage? Torin?
Yeah, well, I mean, for mine, being a farce, I just thought it made sense for it to build to as silly a climax as possible. I mean, the sort of premise of the whole thing is a bit silly in itself because the odds of three people being stuck on a phone call together are pretty much nil, right? So it's a farce inherently from the beginning. So I just thought in terms of pacing, it needed to build and build and build over its duration. So for me, I guess, I think that makes it simpler, really, because you know that you're working towards something ultimately, and that once the climax has been reached, it breaks and the rhythm breaks right back down, and then you can't end on that depression. You need to build up again into a little beat. So I just I think it was kind of, it was apparent what needed to be done. I think I don't think it was too complicated because fast tends to do that. You have to build towards that kind of ending, I think, and try and max out on the laughs, right, and then end on a funny note as well. So I knew roughly the topography of the pacing and the rhythm I was aiming for. You're muted.
I will do that once every single Q&A. It's a routine, it's a habit, and I make good jokes of myself about it. Nash, what you have done to one of my favorite actresses in this film, it breaks my heart, really. So,
You're welcome.
So, my gosh, how unexpected a turn, but yet it's sort of building towards that, and I have so many questions for you. But it's really the same question that we asked Torin, is how consciously, when you're writing that script, do you know your beats, really?
I think, I always have a rhythm or the beats in my head of how they're going to play out. So when I read the script, I see or understand what the timing of it's going to be. Whether other people read that timing, I've never really thought about. But I always have a clear idea, and a lot of the time, I will test out the rhythm by just getting a video camera and just playing out some of the scenes just to get a sense of what's going to work. Especially because a lot of what happens should work without, even if you can't hear the film. So I think I'm very aware of the pacing of it in that way. That the film should work visually just as much as it works, audio wise.
It really does, actually. So mission accomplished on that one. Carlos, similar question for you. How conscious are you of the pacing in your film? In script?
Yeah, I don't know. For me, when I write, I have this kind of fear that I don't know if I'm doing in the right way, because with the rhythm and, as you say, no, with the beat, I don't know if it's gonna work. So I know more or less where I want to start, where I want to go, and then normally what I do is just try with the actors and in the rehearsals and try to see, okay, this works. This thing can be fast. I can change this part of the screenplay. But at the end, as I told you, when I write, I'm never sure if I'm doing in a good way. So normally I'm really like pooping in my pants until I see in the big screen and in the audience, like, okay, this part works, the people is laughing, this part the people is in silence, so this is what I want, this is not what I want. So I try to be conscious, but I'm not if I do it in a proper way.
That's brilliant. You know, one thing I've noticed with almost every really good filmmaker that's ever attended Pendance is they usually don't attend their own screenings inside. They're usually just outside the theater, listening, right up against the wall. They're pressed, and they're trying to see if those moments worked. And yeah, a lot of times they do. So it's good. Daniel?
Sorry, did you ask?
Yes, Daniel. Yes, the question is really how conscious were you? I mean, Swan Song, loved it. Just absolutely adorable film. Really funny. So how conscious were you? And, you know, I think one thing I could probably feel free to expand on it is, you know, sometimes we write a film, make a film, but then we edit the film, right? And we find certain things in the edit or in the performances that we weren't really conscious of. So that's really the point of this question, is to ask how consciously are you scripting those beats in the script stage?
I think for us, there's kind of like two stages to this film. Like the first half of it is building up to the twist and the betrayal. So the first part is like you got the police getting involved, you're building the tension, building. So the pace is trying to be fast, frantic. You're trying to make it feel like you can't breathe. And then when the betrayal happens, you kind of want to diffuse that pacing and just let people have to sit and breathe, like in the awkwardness of, oh, this friendship is probably over now. I don't know what's going to happen next. And you are not allowed to escape by new stuff happening. You just got to sit with the characters in that moment. So we're kind of using the two different types of fast pacing and slow pacing.
Very cool. Thanks for that response. Dominic, the washing machine, my goodness. We have the Austrian consulate here, and we got 7 or 8 emails during this that they were really, really looking forward to your film, but they were really, really not looking forward to Lucifer. Austrian films are a really, really big part of Pendance this year, and it's one of the things that we do every year is we program Story of Everything. So sometimes, you know, we might end up with a lot of films from one country, and this year that country was Austria, very surprisingly. Lovely film, absolutely loved it. So I want to ask this question to you about the pacing. It's so rhythmic, this film. It's like you're playing with the audience almost consistently through this film, where you don't know things and then suddenly you have a suspicion and the suspicion is confirmed. So how conscious are you of that in the script stage, and how much do maybe the actors, the editors bring into that?
Thanks, first of all, for the compliment. Yeah, in that case, I guess I was particularly focusing on pacing because one of the things that I tried out for the first time in this movie was that I didn't use any score or any music at all. So it had to have a certain rhythm within the beats of the dialogue and the story itself, of course. Yeah.
Awesome. I want to ask this question of Torin. So we're just going right around again. And Torin, we have a sort of unwritten rule as a programming team. We don't like pandemic-related shorts. Just so many of them, you know, lockdown this, lockdown that, and then we select a film called Working from Home, you know, because you've managed to make it fresh and unique. So how do you manage to make something that everyone else is making a film about and then put your own personal twist to it?
I don't know. That's a hard question. I just
It's a
thought,
loaded question, but
I suspected as much that people would be fed up with pandemic-related films. To be honest, I mean,
you are correct.
sick of talking about it, and all of us, you know, are sick of lockdown. Not to mention people dying and stuff. So I thought, well, to be honest, the brutal honesty is I was just missing making stuff, and I wanted to make something, and I thought, well, if we can just, this is, you know, sort of a very new thing in all of our lives, so it might as well be about this. And then if it's going to be about the pandemic, it might as well be funny, because otherwise it's a bit, I don't really want to spend a lot of time or effort making something that's depressing. So I just thought, let's make something fun. And it was, the way that we made it was quite complicated. Obviously, none of them could be in the same space at the same time. So piecing it together and building that energy, to go back to the previous question in terms of pacing, it was a very difficult thing to do, to make sure that everyone matched each other at the same times, at the same points in the script, right? Because they couldn't hear each other performing their own bits. I don't know. I think we got away with it, is how I like to put it. I think we got lucky in how it turned out, because it could have been a bit of a disaster. I'm not sure it's a great film now, to be honest, but it was an exercise in getting through a bit of a bleak time. And I was just sort of grateful to be able to get back to it and make something during that time, to be honest.
Yes, well, you have made light or made funny something that a lot of people are probably very frustrated about, and hopefully people can sort of see the humor in it.
Hopefully, hopefully everyone can relate to it too, because we're all stuck at home working. So I thought it's like a free ticket, really.
Well, if there were a festival prize for the most relatable film of 2022, you would win it for sure. It's absolutely unbelievable. Nash, just I've talked to a few directors who also act in their films, and the concept of switching between those two roles, especially when you're the lead performer in a film, can sometimes be challenging. So apart from asking you this very, you know, flowery question of how do you do so much so well, I guess I'd like to ask, how do you switch between those roles, especially when you're the primary, when you're the lead in that? Like,
it's really quite difficult in that, you know, acting is you need to be present in the scene, and as a director, you're always thinking about what else I have to achieve in the day, and so it feels like you're splitting your brain in two. You know, Shark is a sequel to two other films, and you know, Spider and Bear, and Spider being the first one, I never intended on being in the film. I was making it for so little money, and the film required some prosthetics to be made, and the special effects makeup guys were only available, who were doing me a favor, to make a head cast of the actor a few months earlier. And I said, well, I don't have an actor yet. And even if I cast someone now and they get a paying job, then I'm going to lose them. The only person I can guarantee will be on set when we shoot the film is myself. And they suggested that I play the role. And so that's how I ended up playing the role, you know. And the reality is the character is very loosely based on myself, because I like to prank. So that's how it started, me being in the films. I'm glad I did, just because it has been such a challenge. But what I tend to do, just to relieve that feeling of splitting my brain, is my brother, who's an actor and also a director. I'll get him, or another friend who's a filmmaker, to come on set and just, like I say, this is how I'm going to shoot it. Can you just be my eyes when I'm in front of camera? And so at least I have someone who I trust, who will just say, hey, do another take, or that was no good, or whatever. And I've done the same thing for my brother, who's been in films that he's directed, and that helps to do it. but it's definitely a challenge. You know,
And
I look at the dailies and go, oh, it's terrible in that moment because I'm thinking of something else rather than being present in the scene. You know.
and then you're positively surprised when you actually take a look at it on the timeline. Does it help?
Yeah.
You know, as a director, obviously, so much of a job of a director is to actually work with actors and to correct performances. And you know, I have been such a huge Rose Byrne fan, pretty much like the last 12, 13 years. Most people who know me
Yeah.
would say she's one of my favorite actresses in the world.
Yeah,
Does that help a little bit? Not only as a director, but also as an actor, to have an actor who gives you so much to act off of.
Oh, totally, totally. And look, Rose and I have known each other for 20 years, so you know, getting to play opposite someone who you have a friendship with or knows you, and you know, just that helped make my job easier in terms of just forming the relationship between the characters, just because there was already a connection, you know.
Absolutely. Carlos, oh, I have so many questions for you as well. One of the questions I wanted to ask you is, you know, it's sort of related to what we're going through right now. So yesterday we were researching just why some of our posts were not reaching more people. And we found out that apparently people have the attention span of ants these days. And so you have to make content shorter. No one has time to watch a 15 to 20-second thing. You've got to make it 5 seconds or less so that it can amass the millions of views that are required for quote unquote relevance. Is this a part of why we're becoming stupider, which is effectively what your film is about, survivors, this misspelled word, survivors? Do you think a declining attention span and just the fact that most relevant things in life, including filmmaking and making good films, require so much attention, do you think the declining attention span is why we're stupid, or is it something else?
Yeah, I think it's part of the picture that we are now as a society. You know that there are so many things that grab our attention that are not relevant at all. And like the other day, I was reading about this kind of like a Big Brother, this kind of TV programs. It's like at least like here, I don't know in other countries, but at least like here in Spain, all the people want to go to these kind of programs because they want to be famous and they spend so much energy in this. It's like so this is like the thing that you want to do in your life. This is your aim, and this is one of the things. And so this is why we will want to talk about this, like that it doesn't matter if in any country or whatever. It's like as a society we are like losing so much our perspective that I was thinking, okay, maybe we need to stop, maybe we need to reset. But of course, like in the short, I built a situation when everything is more like apocalyptical, and yeah, that was the thing. Like if we deserve a second chance to start as a human race.
You're muted, Rob.
Twice. My God. You know, I have a splitting headache from not drinking coffee, and it is drastically impairing my ability to unmute myself at relevant times. Have you read quite a bit of philosophy? I'm curious because, you know, first of all, I should mention you're a Pendance alumni. We selected your short in 2019, and I was so delighted. Are you aware of this? You remember, yes, Maelstrom? Of course. So I've just always been such a fan of your work because you have these incredibly short, well-paced films that drive home such a relevant point, and there's so much to think about. So I'm curious, is philosophy at any point in your background somewhere? A lot of philosophical texts? Did your grandmother read you Nietzsche when you were like 2 years old? Like, where's this coming from?
I don't know. I think it's a kind of like pessimistic.
Okay.
About life. Just that the easy.
Okay, this is a lesson to all pessimists out there. Make films, make movies. We need more of this.
But in a funny way. So I need to be funny. I can be pessimistic, but in a funny way, at least.
A lot of funny people are a little bit pessimistic, I've noticed. Daniel, so your film at the core is about two things. Now, there's what you say it's about, which is about friendships and finding out who's with you and that breaking point. But I also think that it's about being a foreigner. I think it's about both. Films can be about multiple things, of course. So I'm curious, which of those two subjects do you believe was more present in your film? Because there is the personal story of this thing, but then there's also, like, I've lived in, I think, like 8-9 different countries, and every single time you go to a new country, there's like a new set of laws, a new set of rules, a new lingo. So do you think that your film could perhaps be about being a foreigner in a strange land?
Yeah, I think that's definitely a valid way of looking at it. I think you've got, on one side, you've got about analyzing friendships and testing friendships and what they can mean on a surface level, what they can mean on a deeper level. I sort of think one sort of recurring theme is the idea of things that look like one thing but are really another. You've got like the swan itself really isn't what you think it is. You've got the police that seem really, really serious and tough, not what you think it is, and then the friendship itself, not what you think it is. So the foreignness is just, I think, was a way to test the friendship, because again, like Wales compared to Sweden or Norway seems very different, but maybe it isn't that different. In fact, those countries are pretty similar in culture in many ways. But yeah, definitely that was the idea about putting these two friends in an unfamiliar circumstance. And that's why Wales was kind of perfect. And I think I was sort of thinking about like Welsh accents and Scandinavian accents together, and that already seemed like kind of funny. So I was like, okay, that's something to do, and then let's see where it goes.
Awesome. And the producer of your film, Oscar Albert, was actually director selected to Sundance last year, and he also has a surprise cameo in your film, which caught us off guard. We're like, is that
scene stealing cameo? Yeah,
scene stealing cameo, as we've mentioned before. Talk about the interplay and maybe how beneficial is it to you to have Oscar as a producer, but also someone who knows how to direct. So maybe having a producer who has that direction background to bounce ideas off of.
Well, it's kind of similar to what Nash was just saying about having someone that you trust and whose opinion you understand, and it kind of goes with yours on set with you, because like sometimes being a director is kind of a lonely role, because you have to kind of seem like you're the one who knows all the answers and like doesn't have a direct person they report to, doesn't have its own kind of like department for it. It's like you and the actors, and no one else really does that job. But if you've got like a producer or someone in like one of the agencies that you trust and whose opinion you really know is valid, they can look at a take or rehearsal and like tell you something that you haven't spotted. So like, for example, me and Oscar, we've making films together for a long time now. So whenever we're on set together, it was not uncommon to be like, hey, what do you think, by the way? Because when you're directing, you are channeled in on a certain path. You may not be noticing that something about performance or the setting is like wildly off, because you've tunneled yourself in, you've done 5 takes of something, and that's just how it is. So definitely having someone you can trust and is able to stand one step further back than you and be like, hey, by the way, have you thought of this? Or have you noticed this? It's super invaluable to have.
Absolutely. No, it's absolutely invaluable, because there are so many things you don't see on the day. You're so stressed out being a director. And there's always that trust factor that comes in with producers. And I think producer-director relationships are super important. So I'm glad that you had someone that you trusted in your corner. Dominic, your film is not overtly, like it's not specifically about Islamophobia or anything of this sort. But in a way, it is very much hammering on this topic without actually making the protagonist overtly racist, which I think is a very fine line that you have walked in 2022. It's a very fine line. So are we, because we don't judge him, we understand him, because everything he's feeling is real. So you've done that. So how do you believe, this is a very big question for you, how do you believe that we can overcome our subconscious biases? And by the way, while you're at it, can you tell me the meaning of life as well?
Sure.
Okay.
Well, so I wanted to talk about that issue from the perspective of a white male, privileged white male, because
An
I'm
unexamined perspective, by the way. Great. It's good stuff.
and which is basically or it is my perspective. But I guess, I mean, the whole reason why I made this film was because at one point I stumbled upon my own stereotypes and ingrained racism. When I did a listing for some old furniture, and then I went down this rabbit hole because I kind of whitewashed the condition the furniture was in, and then I imagined this guy picking up my stuff, and now he knows where I live, and he brings back home this IKEA whatever thing, and it breaks down, and he wants to take revenge on me. And I just went down this rabbit hole and thought it was funny until I realized that I was imagining that guy as this racist. I mean, I had this racist stereotype picturing this guy, and that was kind of shocking to me to see how someone who thinks of himself as a open-minded liberal still has these stereotypes ingrained, and I thought that was disturbing and interesting at the same time, and I wanted the protagonist to kind of have the same image of himself, and then slowly, under pressure, getting stripped off of his own self-belief, or yeah. So does that answer your question, Sama? So what I think not being racist is something that you actively have to do somehow, I guess, at least in my opinion. I think it's not something you just passively have somehow. Yeah.
And that's very interesting that you've come to that, because I don't necessarily think that it's racist to be afraid of something. I think it's racist to believe that you have the right to be afraid of something because of somebody else. There's a very fine line there. I actually explored this in a film that I made in 2017, when a woman, is at an ATM, and a teenager behind her is following her at night and yelling after her, and she doesn't understand, so she calls the cops and runs away from him, not realizing that she's left her card and money at the ATM. Was she racist, or do women subconsciously understand that being chased by a man at night is supposed to be scary regardless of where they're from? I think there's sort of a gray area there, and I guess what I was asking you was not about how to become less racist, but rather how to navigate the sort of subconscious biases. Is it as easy as simply acknowledging that you have them, and working to expose yourself to different people? I certainly believe that it's a little harder to be racist towards people if you've met them and know them. So I don't know. I guess that's what I meant, subconsciously.
Yeah, everything you said, I think, I guess it's also just important to just talk about it with as many people as possible, or make a film about it. I don't know. And maybe it's not so much about racism. Maybe it's more about prejudice in general. I'm not sure.
Absolutely.
I guess there's a little difference. Yeah.
So Brian has a question here, which comes up from time to time, which is, what advice would you have for someone that has never made a film but is passionate about it? Can I share with you what Mark Rosso said to this exact question last year? He said, just do it. And then he was subsequently sued by Nike. so steer clear of saying just do it. Anyone want to take this one?
Since I'm still on, I think one thing that I learned is that you should always try to tell a story that is close to home, to yourself. That's not try to be the next, I don't know, Tarantino or whatever, but try to tell stories that come from wherever you come from, or what you, yeah, that are close to you.
Well, if you do ever want to be the next Tarantino, you can always start with a close-up of someone's feet and work from there. Torin, do you have any advice for someone who's new to filmmaking but is perhaps a little trepidatious about getting started?
I think I don't have any better advice than just do it. The 3 words I use are just keep making. I think it's about practice as well as making something. It's about making lots of things, because invariably early efforts will be pretty terrible, because early efforts at anything are pretty terrible. But that's really important. It's really important to be bad and to learn good lessons and make mistakes. And then it's like practice. You've got to practice doing anything. And filmmaking is incredibly complicated, especially if you're doing everything yourself. Like a lot of us we'll all know what that is like, making shorts where you're doing everything. And if you're passionate about it, it's fun making those things and being tortured by it and working really hard and doing all those things. So just get stuck in and keep doing it and doing it and doing it. I still think my films aren't very good, but I love doing it, and it's it's cathartic and it's therapeutic, and I wouldn't want to spend my free time doing anything else. It's great fun, and that's my objective, is to keep doing it and keep practicing and keep making it. That's what I would say.
Just do it. And you know what? You might not be terrible right away. You might be Xavier Dolan, and you might be really, really good at it. Right?
I hate whoever.
So you never know.
Whoever gets it right first time, I hate them.
Oh, yeah. Screw those guys.
Good for them as well.
Oh man, this is such a cynical panel. Love it. Nash, do you have any advice for anyone?
Yeah, look, I agree with Torin, and I feel the same. You just go out and make stuff, and as Dominic said, make stuff that that comes from you, and use resources that you have access to. And the best thing that happened to me and my friends when we started is we couldn't get anyone else to work on our film, so we had to learn how to do everything. We had to learn how to use the camera and to record the sound and edit it, and we had to perform our own films because it was just us. And the best thing about that, we got to learn all different aspects of filmmaking and fail at each one of them and make mistakes and try again. And but the best thing you can do is actually just go out and try if you are passionate about it.
I think it's very obvious in your work that you have a working knowledge of a lot of departments. I don't know how I was able to pull that off, like without having read your bio prior to, but it's very obvious. And I actually really love the films by filmmakers like that. It's nothing against directors who just direct and do nothing else, but I think the Safdie brothers were doing a Q&A a few years ago, and they said, unless you know every department, you can't direct any department. So I think it really does help to understand sound, at least on a basic level. And working with a composer, for instance, is so much easier once you actually have sat and tried to compose a film once,
I think once you've tried a bit of everything, you really appreciate people who are good at their job. If you get a great production designer or a great actor or a great cinematographer, you really appreciate what collaboration is and what others can bring and elevate what you're trying to do when you've had to do it all yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Carlos, okay, do we have more questions here? Okay, so to anyone watching right now, please feel free to ask questions. We'll be here for another 5 to 10 minutes and just grab any questions that you can. Carlos, the production designer, so your film is very self-contained. One question that I had for you, really, it's very impressive visually, stunning, beautiful work cinematography-wise, but literally, to Brian and others who are watching, can't think of a better film to watch if you don't have resources than to watch this film. It's so simplified. It's you've created an apocalypse in a parking lot, which is just brilliant, in a single car. So to go on what Nash was talking about, embracing your limitations. Do you think, because if I remember Maelstrom correctly, which I definitely do because I love that film, it's 2 guys in a cafe. You got 2 guys in a cafe. You move to 3 people in a car. Eventually, we're going to go 4 people in a van, 5 people.
Improving.
As the budget grows,
Exactly.
right? So let's talk about embracing the limitations within the script. I think this is fantastic advice for filmmakers. When you're starting out, give yourself a handicap. Like, create that sort of artificial limitation of saying, like, okay, we're gonna do it, but we're not gonna use any close-ups, or like Dominic, not gonna use any music. I think this is a very powerful way. So talk about embracing the limitation of 3 actors, 1 car, 1 location, 1 limitation. Yeah.
Okay, yes. I think, okay, in Master it was more about I want to try something like with the zoom, the narrative use of using the camera. But here with Survivors, I knew that I would not afford a big budget to do this, because I have to pay by myself. There is no funds for this kind of movies. So I was thinking, okay, I want to make some like a dark comedy, but I want to use like the sci-fi genre. So okay, let's try to cut as much limitation as or no, as much limits that I can, and let's go through this path. And I don't know how was, because you always think that when you have limitations, you cannot tell the story that you want. But I think that if you are a little I don't have to say like stubborn, or that you put too much effort in these kind of things, you really find a way in telling the story that you want. And then when you go to filming, because you just work in the screenplay and you just put some things, you build some things. Okay, the custom has to be in this way, the cinematography has to be in this way. You can tell to the departments, okay, this is a sci-fi movie, but it's gonna look a kind of low budget. I don't know how to say this in English. Fuck. They have to work as if they have all the money of the world, but because you set the concept in a really low performance. I don't know. Sorry for my English, because it's complicated to
It's
elaborate this
absolutely
sentence.
fine.
Okay. So I don't know what I was saying. So the thing is that if in the screenplay you just set the things in a low profile, and you can transmit this idea to your departments, at the end they're gonna be in the same dynamic that you, and they can follow more or less the same aim that you have.
I think your production design, cinematography, every department, stellar in Survivors. It was so great. And I think simplifying everything for everybody and just saying, okay, we're going to do 3 suits instead of overcomplicating it. Less is more very often, and especially in a 7-minute film. We do have a question here. Long one. I loved all the films, and working from home was super relatable, and LOL and LOL. And laugh out loud. Okay. For Nash, you mentioned the main character was loosely based on you. Were you exploring a fear, or just what happens when anything is taken too far? I love this question.
Yeah, I think I was more exploring what happens when you take things too far. I think the fears in the film, and in the previous 2 films, Spider and Bear, they're animals that just instinctively people are naturally afraid of, and so it's just, I think the reactions the characters have to things in the film are just very relatable. But being someone who likes to prank, I like the idea of what happens if there's a guy that pranks and just doesn't know what the limit is and doesn't understand the consequences of his actions. And it's also, I guess I was exploring, a guy by, making, this being the third in the series of the films, is a guy that, keeps getting older, but just doesn't grow up.
So it's Peter Pan. Okay. So that's interesting. One of my late friends, Rob Stewart, made Sharkwater, and was one of my favorite documentaries.
Oh yeah, it's a great film.
Yeah, and so I've been, I've known Rob since I was 17 years old, so really long time, and he really got me passionate about saving sharks. So to anyone out there thinking about watching Shark, it's not that type of film. It's not. It's not. But it's hammering home a different type of message. But I really loved it, and I adore sharks. So
I mean, so much.
yeah, but yeah, it's. I don't believe that a shark would actually do that. I'm gonna say that one for Rob. So a little bit unrealistic.
Well, my whole thing was sometimes they just, I didn't make it super violent. They just taste things and let go. That was the idea.
Yeah. Well, we're not going to spoil it for anybody watching this, but luckily, okay. So I love this film. Like I just adore it so much. Like it was one of the best shorts we saw all year. Congrats on it. Seriously.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Daniel, kind of a awkward personal question. I'm just going to ask you, just put you on the spot. What's a good friend
What is a good friend?
to you? Yeah, what's a good friend to you?
A good friend. Definitely, of course, someone you can trust, someone you can rely on, someone who will give you money to make a movie, someone who doesn't mind if you don't pay them back for money you took from making a movie.
You sound like a really terrible friend. I'm just going to tell you that right now.
I don't know if I'm a good friend. I just know what I need from other friends. That's kind of the key thing. Yeah,
I said, what's a good friend, not an ATM.
Gives more than they take. Yeah, I think the film, in my film, a bad friend is someone who will betray you in the name of their own success, like, put themselves first. But it's tricky because sometimes in life, maybe you have to put yourself first to get ahead. In this scenario, it's someone's career at stake. So what they're going to do, they're going to sacrifice their whole life for a friend, or, so that's kind of the situation they're in. And then when the twist happens, they've made this big sacrifice for nothing. But yeah, it's you live, you learn with friendships.
If there are any narcissists watching, that's just a great way of looking at it, so that you can tell yourself that every selfish action can be justified, because when you're successful, then you'll be able to help all the people that you're screwing over right now. So this is the cyclical way of the narcissist mind. And yes, I absolutely agree. Fund the movie is a great friend. I completely wholeheartedly agree.
I need more friends who will fund the movie, I'd say. That's what I'm looking for.
Okay, we know the criteria now. Dominic, do you currently have anything listed on Craigslist for sale?
No, I don't. I actually hate that whole thing. It's always kind of too intimate. I don't know.
Did you think Craigslist is too intimate?
No, inviting people to your home to get rid of stuff is just. I try to avoid it. That's what I'm saying.
Has this film changed your laundry process? Like how you eventually do laundry?
I mean,
it's changed. Yeah. It's changed, at least for us as programmers. It has changed how we do laundry.
Oh, that's awesome.
We haven't really looked at our laundry the same way again.
So the sound you hear at the very beginning of the film, the peeping sound, is actually the sound my own washing machine makes when the laundry is ready. So I'm constantly reminded of that film somehow when my laundry is done. So yeah, sticks with me. Yeah. I just wanted to say, when Daniel was talking about friendship and what he wants to get out of it and this whole concept, I had to think of Anna Delvey. I think that's what she was trying to do. She tried to be the best friend. I don't know if you watched Inventing Anna. I just finished it.
Yeah. I was ranting the other day about Inventing Anna and about Tinder Swindler, and how I think that our society is a little too preoccupied with narcissists, and how this might become a bit of a blueprint for future endeavors. Needless to say, I will not be buying anything off of Craigslist anytime soon because of the prevalence of these shows. So yes. Thank you guys so much for coming on. This was such a sincere pleasure for us. We're so happy to have your films. This is easily one of the, it's very difficult sometimes as programmers to put together a cohesive block. And I think we've put together 8 cohesive blocks at this festival. And we really wanted to start out with LMFAO shorts, just because we think that before we make people depressed on Saturday and Sunday, that they'll have to remember that at one point we made them laugh with these films. So thank you so much. And anyone who's watching this a little bit later, because I know that the 6 o'clock time was not ideal for a lot of people who are coming back from work, please shoot us an email. And, you know, if we can, we'll be happy to get your questions answered at a later date. Yeah, thank you guys so much for coming on. Enjoy the rest of Pendance. If you need any film recommendations, shoot us an email. We'd be happy to let you know. Any parting words?
Thanks, Robert. Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much.
It's our
Thank you.
pleasure.
It's fun.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Max.
guys. I managed to actually watch all your films before the thing started. They were all really brilliant. And I don't really know a lot of people who want to make comedy films, so it's nice to know there's other people out there doing this too. So
To lend you money.
Honestly,
Festivals, there's so many shorts are serious or dark. So yeah, I really appreciate people making comedy as well.
there's about, I think, 20 to 25 programmers that are attending Pendance this year, and largely they were like, it's so cool that you guys have really good comedy shorts. They're very rare. I'll tell you what's not rare: drama shorts. Those are not rare. But comedy shorts are extremely rare, and good ones are exceptionally rare. So thank you so much for showcasing your films at Pendance. It's our pleasure to have you.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you
Cheers
very
and
much.
good night. Good night to those in the late time zones. Thank you for staying up with us. See you.
See you. Bye.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.